Part 5, Chapter 32. Energy, the astounding origin of our material world. Energy spheres are the source of our material world. Our solid physical foundation isn't solid at all. Its composition is so tiny that it will always be invisible. How real are the spiritual and physical realms to you? Do you believe the physical world comes from the spiritual? Do you believe the physical can become spiritual and then physical over and over at will? Or are you a doubting Thomas? John 20, verses 24 through 31. But Thomas, one of the 12, called Didymus, was not with them when Jesus came. The other disciples therefore said to him, "We have seen the Lord." But he said to them, "Except I shall see in his hands the print of the nails, and put my finger into the print of the nails, and thrust my hand into his side, I will not believe." And after 8 days, again his disciples were within, and Thomas with them. Then came Jesus, the doors being shut, and stood in the midst, and said, "Peace be unto you." Then said he to Thomas, "Reach hither your finger, and behold my hands, and reach hither your hand, and thrust it into my side, and be not faithless, but believing." And Thomas answered and said to him, "My Lord and my God." Jesus said to him, "Thomas, because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are they that have not seen, and yet have believed." And many other signs truly did Jesus in the presence of his disciples, which are not written in this book. But these are written, that you might believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that believing you might have life through his name. The above example is biblical, spiritual, and physical reality. Christ's physical body was put in a burial cavern. He rose as God, a spirit being, and entered rooms with closed doors. He appeared and disappeared, transforming from one state to another at will. There has to be an interconnection between the spirit and the physical realms. The Ruach, spirit, occupies that role. In our physical world, this has a small s. The power of God's Holy Spirit produces the invisible spirit, which takes on 2 forms. First, invisible as the instinct in animals, and the spirit in humans, which is the human mind. Second, visible as quanta, the minutest form of energy. This diagram helps focus on this setup. The material world from nothing, or what? Science cannot answer this question, but recognizes a significant problem in not answering it. This quote comes from Wikipedia. Some people don't appreciate Wikipedia, especially on such profound scientific issues. However, it is layman's science, and I'm using it to make this information as accessible as possible. Quote, "Vacuum fluctuations appear as virtual particles, which are always created in particle-antiparticle pairs. Since they are created spontaneously, without a source of energy, vacuum fluctuations and virtual particles are said to violate the conservation of energy. This is theoretically allowable because the particles annihilate each other within a time limit determined by the uncertainty principle, so they are not directly observable. The law of conservation of energy, first proposed and tested by Émilie du Châtelet, means that energy can neither be created nor destroyed. Rather, it can only be transformed or transferred from one form to another. As expounded by the above quote, the theory says that vacuum fluctuations, the minutest form of energy, are created spontaneously, without a source of energy, leading to the often heard conclusion, something from nothing. If you are interested in this debate, do an internet search for something from nothing in science. Ruach resolves both these fundamental problems. Spirit energy gives rise to quantum fluctuations, something from something. It is spiritual energy converted to physical energy, thus respecting the law of conservation of energy. The nature of the minutest form of energy, quantum fluctuations. I'm going to try to do something. I don't know how exact this is scientifically, and I don't know if I can make it understandable for readers. Consider it a draft that will need revisions and editing. But here's a layman's explanation of quantum physics. No equations, just concepts to understand how the physical world is constructed. The same Wikipedia article above starts with this phrase. Please forget about all the jargon. Quote, in quantum physics, a quantum fluctuation, also known as a vacuum state fluctuation or vacuum fluctuation, is the temporary random change in the amount of energy in a point in space. Focus on point in space, our first concept. In my opinion, understanding starts with grasping what this point or pinpoint is. It's the smallest possible space. This point is impossible to calculate. The shortest length so far is the Planck length of 1.6 times 10 to the minus 35th power meters. That's the number 16 preceded by 34 zeros and a decimal point. This length is used in various aspects of physics, and the point is tiny, tiny, tiny. So how many points are there in the universe? This brings us to the second concept, the quantum field. When we use the term field, we conjure up a two-dimensional image, like a soccer field. This is further lodged into our minds by two-dimensional graphics of magnetic fields. Science, though, describes a quantum field as a fluid. In other words, something that completely fills any container. It's everywhere at the same time. It's three-dimensional. Now, try to get your head around this. All those Planck length points from our first concept fully occupy the three-dimensional space. That's a lot of points, whatever the space. Imagine the entire universe filled with these tiny points. That's the quantum field. The third concept is quantum fluctuations. The quote above explains what this is. Random change in the amount of energy in a point. So, each of those minuscule points is emitting energy. Let's pause here and consider what's happening. What does a point emitting energy look like? Any point emitting energy resembles a firecracker exploding, or the tip of an antenna emitting waves. Remember, this image is two-dimensional, width and height, but in reality, the explosion is three-dimensional, including depth. Think about what it means when you throw a pebble into the pond. You see two-dimensional ripples spreading out from the point of impact. But the reality is, the ripples also spread out in the water below and in the air above. We just don't see them. So it's really three-dimensional ripples. Even the word ripples is misleading because of its two-dimensional implication. Often, here's the way these points are presented graphically as a quantum field. It is two-dimensional. Graphic presentations have limitations. Therefore, the uninitiated in this complex dimension can have misinformed ideas. Thus, similar to the fields, waves are often presented in two dimensions. For example, the feature image of smell in chapter 30 and fluctuating, vibrating waves in chapter 31 are presented this way. But it is vital to realize that in reality, this is not the case. Points of energy and waves are up, down, right, left, and everywhere in between. Therefore, I'm going to coin a couple of terms here to help us grasp what I'm trying to show. Energy spheres, what science calls energy packets, particle-like packets, and sphering. Every single one of these minuscule points is a quantum sphere emitting energy in all directions. Like blowing up a balloon, it expands in a spherical shape, hence the term sphering energy. Here's an excellent summary from physicist Jim Al-Khalili. Quote, "A quantum wave smearing itself out across the cell. The energy doesn't simply move from A to B. It heads in every direction at the same time. It's spreading itself out as a wave so that it can explore all possible routes simultaneously. This strikes at the very heart of what's so strange about quantum mechanics. The wave is following all paths at the same time. That's what gives it such incredible efficiency. It's trying every route to the reaction center at once. It's bound to find the fastest possible way to deliver its energy." This video will start with the above concept, but I suggest you watch the entire video to understand quantum physics in everyday life better. To describe this movement of energy, science uses terms like fluctuations, ripples, smearing, spreading itself out, and all possible routes simultaneously. The only way this can happen is by what I call sphering. The energy expands like the explosion of a firecracker, covering all space in every direction. Here's one of the reasons why I'm explaining this. Once you grasp the concept of sphering, you immediately understand that each individual point sphere intersects and interacts with every other sphere. This sphering energy is in the form of waves. Now I want to take your imagination to the nth level. Imagine that each sphering point can emit energy on every frequency, from the lowest to the highest. All the waves are superimposed, one on the other, filling the universe. As the energy spheres intersect, they interact, see the image, bringing into existence all the matter and energy in the universe. Included in this are dark matter, 27%, and dark energy, 68%, which we know exist because that's what fuels the accelerating expansion of the universe. Together, they represent 95% of all energy in the universe. On the other hand, the visible matter created from the remaining energy represents only 5% of the total sphering energy. Science has revealed the smallest of small. We can't see it, but we know it's there. There's no such thing as a space with nothing. Today we recognize a vacuum, an item from which all air has been removed, is not empty. In quantum physics, a quantum fluctuation, also known as a vacuum state fluctuation or vacuum fluctuation, is the temporary random change in the amount of energy in a point in space. In the accompanying image, we visualize the physical fluctuations in a vacuum, the sphering of all those points that constitute the quantum field. Please note this animation is within a cube, so we picture the visible physical fluctuations, vibrations hitting the side. In reality, space has no sides. These fluctuations continue on their way, ad infinitum, filling the entire universe. We have already established the fluctuations of spirit ruach. I want you to realize that there's an interface between the energy of the fluctuating spirit energy of God and the fluctuating physical sphering energy of the universe. The invisible meets the visible, and the following Bible verse should take on new light. Romans 1, verse 20. For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made. Sam's comment, the visible things. Even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. The visible comes from the invisible. Something comes from something. Physical sphering energy comes from spirit ruach energy. Our visible universe comes from an invisible creator God.